Making money on the stock market. Greetings from Ballarat, Victoria, Australia. I'm Jerome Nugent-Smith, and this is episode 4 of Making Money on the Stock Market. And today I'd like to drill down into a specific subset of the episode 3, which was the active daily trading strategy, in terms of where the fund, $100,000, increased to 10.3 million plus, or a return on investment of 10,227% over a 6-month period from March 1st, 2021 to the end of August 2021. Now, as I said, this is a continuation of episode 3, and what I'd like to do is to talk to you and give you a specific example which demonstrates just how I approach the daily active trading strategy. And I'd like you to refer you to a specific stock. Its ASX code is EFE, and I'll just get it up now on my, there it is, EFE. Now, this particular stock, I guess, falls in the subset of the penny dreadfuls. I mean, the share price on Thursday night was, the previous close was 0.331 cents, 3.1 cents. Now, the reason why I selected this particular stock are as follows. This is on Friday, September 17th. First of all, EFE is one of about 37 stocks, Chinese stocks, that I've got a record of that are on the ASX. But what I mean by that is that Chinese companies from mainland China that have listed on the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange, and by definition have a majority of Chinese directors. The management is Chinese, generally speaking, and the majority of shareholding is by mainland Chinese people, even though they're on the Australian Stock Exchange. Now, this particular minnow, EFE, ASX EFE, is in the iron ore space, which of course is very, very topical, and I'll talk about that in subsequent essays in terms of Australia's #1 export globally and specifically to China. And boy oh boy, is Australia and is iron ore in trouble. In fact, I'll be bold enough to announce on this particular episode that, in my opinion, within 5 years, Australia will not be exporting any iron ore to China. Now, if you didn't get that, I'll repeat it, that Australia, within 5 years, will not be exporting any iron ore to China. And think of the ramifications of that in terms of the blue chip stocks that are listed on the ASX and stock exchange elsewhere. Anyway, back to the minnow, EFE. Well, as I mentioned, EFE is on my Chinese watch list, so I monitor that list every day, and they made an announcement with regard to a particular attractive proposition to inform the Australian Stock Exchange and the investors and so on, the investing public, about a particular transaction that they were entering into. Now, as part of the February to March strategy, the fund had invested several times in EFE and made quite a lot of money, in fact, well in excess of 150% daily turns on that. So I was across the stock, I was across the Chinese market, I was across the management and the directors and where this company was heading and so on, and I knew that it would fly on last Friday the 17th of September. So it's just a day or so away, because it's being Sunday the 19th. So the stock opened at 0.32 cents. It then fell to 0.3 cents, which I bought 10 million shares, invested $300,000, and then from there the stock eventually peaked at an intraday high of 4.4, but I sold the shares, the 10 million shares, at 4.3 cents, and it's 10 million at so netting what was it, 160, so it was $130,000 profit on a $300,000 investment within the space of one day. So bought, as soon as the purchase order had been completed or even partially completed, I put sell orders on and sold, and in and out in the one day with $130,000 profit on a $300,000 investment. And that's a very specific example of the main trading strategies and subset strategies that I employ on a daily basis at looking at investing. So, moving on, in the next episode we'll have a look at other trading strategies and give you examples. But what next? What am I looking to do next? Well, in very simple terms, looking at taking the fictitious ASX investment fund. It's the fund that basically is monitored by my U3A students, plus I talk about on radio, the local radio station 3BA, and turn that into reality. I'm looking at setting up a hedge fund, could be listed on the ASX or held privately or elsewhere, with a $5 million investment. And my objective, which I think is eminently achievable, is to have a return of in excess of 1,000% in the next 12 months. So $5 million growing to $62.5 million in the next 12 months will generate a 1,115% return on investment. And based on the past 6 months and the success of the investment strategies, I believe that that is eminently possible. So I look forward to talking to you on episode number 5 and subsequent episodes about further details of the investment strategy. Meantime, happy investing, and I hope you make a lot of money. Bye from Ballarat.